Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. I, along with a lot of combat sports fans, have GSP as their favorite fighter of all time. So, of course, we are all very excited to watch GSP in his grappling match on December 14th of this year on a UFC Fight Pass Invitational card. So, in today's video, I'm going to be answering the question, who is GSP going to potentially be facing in this grappling match, and can he beat some of his potential opponents? GSP, of course, has not competed in combat sports, in MMA, or anything in general since 2017 when he made his middleweight debut in a championship fight against Michael the Count Bisping. This was a phenomenal fight, and of course, he ended this fight with a really nice rear naked choke. So in 26 wins for GSP, he has 6 submissions. And GSP really was revolutionary in terms of grappling in MMA because he was really the first non-grappler with a non-grappling background to consistently beat guys like Matt Hughes, Josh Koscheck and company, guys who have much more decorated pasts in terms of grappling. GSP took those guys and out-grappled them, so GSP proved to have incredible MMA grappling despite not doing wrestling as a kid, not doing jiu-jitsu as a kid. He completely picked it up on the fly as his MMA career started and went on, and he turned into one of the best grapplers in mixed martial art history. So just to get the Gordon Ryan talk out of the room, these guys definitely will not be facing each other. Not only do I think this is a matchup GSP knows he cannot win, but Gordon Ryan and GSP have trained together many times. And most importantly, John Danaher, who is GSP's main grappling coach, is a main grappling coach of Gordon Ryan as well. And I'm really excited to see what GSP can do in this grappling match, considering in his career, he was more traditionalist in terms of the submissions he would go for. GSP loved that rear naked choke, of course. He loved the arm bars, and he'd even try some Kimuras out sometimes, as he has won a fight with a Kimura. But with John Danaher, of course, has incredible submissions all around. He's a very good, well-rounded jiu-jitsu practitioner, but really, he's known for being one of the godfathers, if not the godfather of leg locks. Really, before John Danaher came along, leg locks and lower body limb submissions really had a negative connotation in the world of jiu-jitsu and just in the world of grappling in general. And John Danaher really was one of the first main guys in jiu-jitsu to really master the leg locks and make it very popular. That's why you see guys like Gordon Ryan dominate with those leg locks and those lower body submissions. So I'm very excited to see if GSP has changed his grappling style at all over the years, because this is, of course, not how he used to grapple at all. So getting into some big names, of course, the biggest name that I think would be very fun for GSP to grapple in this grappling match, and somebody I'm very confident he'd beat as well, is of course Nick Diaz. These guys have a lot of history together. Nick Diaz used to absolutely hate GSP and accused him of cheating for their fight in 2013 and even took legal action against GSP. Now, these guys have somewhat reconciled nowadays, but I really think that's because GSP is genuinely the nicest guy on planet Earth. It's so hard to hate him, and I still think deep down inside, Nick probably has somewhat of a disdain for GSP. But this grappling match would be the classic wrestler versus jiu-jitsu guy in terms of dominant top control, dominant takedowns against a guy who likes to play in his guard and has really nice jiu-jitsu off of his back. Nick Diaz is a guy who really does not have that great of wrestling. His takedown defense isn't all that good. There's honestly no way Nick Diaz could get on top of GSP and have dominant position over him. If Nick Diaz wanted to win this grappling match, it would be from a submission off the bottom. He, of course, has a very notoriously great triangle choke from his back, so that's how he would try to submit GSP. I just would not see it happening. So of course, in their fight in 2013, GSP was 9 for 16 on takedowns, and he had 13 minutes and 44 seconds of control time. He was absolutely ragdolling Nick Diaz in the grappling department. Very funny enough, GSP was smart enough in this fight to not even shoot a submission, as of course Nick Diaz's jiu-jitsu is absolutely phenomenal. His submission defense is so good, so GSP was more so focusing on ground and pound. So that'd make the projection for this grappling match extremely interesting, as I'm honestly not confident that GSP would be able to submit Nick Diaz. Rather, I'm confident that he'd be able to repeatedly take him down, use his dominant, strong frame with his dominant technique in terms of the top game for his wrestling and for his grappling in general, So again, I do believe GSP would be able to win this fight, but most likely on points as he would dominate with control time. I don't know if he would even have more submission attempts than Nick Diaz, as Nick Diaz actually had a submission attempt in their fight in 2013 and GSP did not. Then there's Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit would be really interesting. Again, a former opponent in a championship fight against GSP in 2012. GSP did win this fight via a unanimous decision victory. And very similar story with Nick Diaz to Carlos Condit as well, as GSP absolutely ragdolled Carlos Condit in the grappling department in this fight. He was 7 for 8 on takedowns, and he had 14 minutes and 57 seconds of control time. Absolutely dominant. Again, though, Carlos Condit's jiu-jitsu is really nice off of his back, and GSP knew this. He knew how good Carlos Condit's submission defense is as well, so he didn't really attempt any submissions in this fight either. Rather, again, he really prioritized that ground and pound. So again, that would make this grappling match very interesting, but very similar story to the Nick Diaz fight. I think GSP would be able to win with that superior top control. A long-time 170er that GSP actually never ended up fighting would be very interesting. It would be Demian Maia. Now, he is 45, so he's pretty old, but it would be very interesting to see one of the most decorated jiu-jitsu practitioners in the history of MMA to fight GSP in this grappling match. Now, I do favor GSP pretty heavily in this grappling match, as Demian Maia, he has very underrated wrestling, but it is not at the caliber of GSP. GSP is just such a dominant wrestler. Demian Maia got absolutely out-wrestled by guys like Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington, and Tyron Woodley, and I'm very confident in saying GSP is at the very least in the same realm in the grappling department as these guys, if not better, because I'm very confident in saying GSP's jiu-jitsu and submission game is much better than Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington, and Tyron Woodley's. And the thing is, with Demian Maia, contrary to popular belief, he would always get very dominant top controls. He would get very dominant back-sitting positions to submit his opponents. He's not a guy who really liked to play off his back a lot, contrary to popular belief. Again, most of his submission victories are from rear naked chokes. Some of them are triangle chokes, but even then, such as that Chael Sonnen fight, Demian Maia had Chael rocked on the feet, had a nice judo throw, had top control, and then transitioned from top control to that triangle. So again, he's not a guy who's really going to submit you off of his back. Now, he does have some guillotines, and overall, he does have some submissions off of his back. But again, I do favor GSP. I think he'd be able to beat him with that dominant top control and that really nice wrestling. I know GSP is a better wrestler than Demian Maia. He'd be able to stuff a lot of the takedowns from Demian Maia. I also think Anderson Silva would be extremely fun. Now, Anderson Silva is more so focusing on boxing nowadays, but if he wanted to try his hand in a grappling match, this would be a huge storyline, as for a long time, GSP reigned over the 170-pound division in the UFC, and of course, Anderson the Spider Silva reigned over that 185-pound division. We all knew this entire time that GSP could move up to 185 to fight Anderson Silva. That was a fight that was always rumored to happen that never ended up happening. It really is one of the biggest what-ifs in UFC history that this fight never ended up happening, so I would absolutely love to see it happen. Again, Anderson Silva's takedown defense and overall wrestling just is not adequate enough to stuff the takedowns of GSP, but of course, Anderson Silva has very dangerous jiu-jitsu off of his back, and he is a bigger guy than GSP out there, so it'd be a very interesting matchup nonetheless. Then, of course, the last name on this list that everyone would absolutely love to see GSP grapple is, of course, Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm not sure Khabib would come out of retirement for a grappling match, but if he ever were to come out of retirement, it would be soon, considering he's starting to get up there in age. But more importantly, his dad's favorite fighter was Georges St-Pierre. Khabib has more respect for GSP than any other fighter in UFC history, so if he was to honor his dad's legacy and to honor his own legacy, there'd be no one other perfect to do it against than GSP. Now, in this grappling match, I would definitely favor Khabib. Khabib is just so dominant. His takedown defense is absolutely insane. GSP, I think, would really struggle to get him down, and once Khabib would be able to get GSP down eventually, GSP off of his back would not be good enough. That's where that training with John Danaher would come in. I'd be very intrigued with this matchup, as I think GSP really would change up his style and would shoot a lot of leg locks and leg submissions in this fight. Thanks for listening, guys. Let me know in the comment section below, who is your dream matchup for GSP and how do you like his potential chances against some of his potential opponents? Again, thanks for listening, guys.